Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Harry Singer Foundation Empowering Women Show. Super excited as always to introduce you to another amazing soul who is just in her own right, her presence empowers other women, but she's also actively out there serving women. So without further ado, let's introduce you to who our guest is today. Today we have the amazing Surekha Shenoy, and Surekha is a leader, speaker, mentor, champion, and ally, and many, many, many other things. Like most of the empowering women that come on, you have so many roles, but I want to give you a flavor of the things that she's achieved thus far, so you get a flavor of who this amazing soul is. So she's taken on various roles in corporate world, right? She's been a managing director, she's been a chief of staff. She literally, where she goes, she takes on leadership roles, right? So when I say she's a leader, it's her lifestyle, but not just in roles. On top of that, she has been working for Morgan Stanley in India, actively involved with Morgan Stanley globally, and now she's transitioned into a new role in a new organization, TIAA. And we're going to be talking a little bit about not just the organization, what got Surekha to go into that field after so many years of working in one area, right? So she's also, when I talk about the type of roles and leads she's taken on corporate social responsibility and lead on philanthropy. This is what brought us together, serving and doing stuff. But then, when we vibrated on that same energy of, social responsibility, corporate social responsibility, and philanthropy. We're going to be talking a lot about that today. On top of that, she is actively acting. There are people that, do stuff, but when it comes to diversity and inclusion, she's an ally. And I mean ally, we should have underlined it. When we say ally, these are the people who consistently, authentically and consistently champion certain causes. She's one of the big players, and I don't know when this episode's going out, but I know we're recording it during Pride Month, so it's really, really important that we understand that there are people in the world who, when we say allies, we'll get to grips with what that is. So on top of that, she's featured on Equally, and I'm going to be talking about this publication, this book, where a whole bunch of people came together, and it's a big thing that we'll discuss today. On top of that, she is a role model for women in tech. I've already said she's a role model for women, full stop, and for guys, especially in what she's achieved, but she's definitely a role model for women in tech. And if I hadn't mentioned it, she's a mum and she's a humanitarian. Remember, what's the definition of humanitarian? The definition of humanitarian is actually what's in her mission. And her mission is to make the world a better place. For many of us, it's like if we can leave the world a better place than when we came in, that's the true core of a humanitarian. Right? So, without further ado, let's bring her straight in. Surekha, thank you so much for being here, taking time out and joining us on this episode.
Pleasure to be here, Harry, and thank you for that energizing introduction. It's always lovely to speak to you, and I'm so really humbled to be on the show. I do hope it will help some women, if not all your listeners. Pleasure to be here.
It will. And you know what? I know you don't always take up, you're not always out there taking on shows and doing things. You're actively out there doing what you do, so we appreciate it. Now, giving people a flavor of the achievements and things that you've done, but like we always do on this show, if you could take us back a little and tell us a little bit about the journey, what got Surekha into all the things that that I've just listed there. So go ahead, give us a little flavor of the backstory.
So we'll do a time travel here.
Yeah, let's do it.
I'll take you back to the time. I think I would like to kind of make sure that, especially given the topic, I think it's important that I come out and talk to what I am really. So I come from an extremely humble beginning. My dad was a migrant into Mumbai who came in at 16, taking care of family responsibilities and siblings. Unfortunately, had poor health and had to drop out of the workforce when I was about 10 or 12. And which meant that, my mother, who was a homemaker, and my brother, who's about 8 years younger to me, suddenly seemed like people that I should be putting at the front and center of my life. And I think that was the first time I gave myself a title, Harry, Chief Responsibility Officer. Yeah. And I knew that I had to kind of make sure that I steered the family towards a safer place, to a place where we didn't have to worry every day on how things would be. And I think that stays at the core of who Surekha is. I never let myself forget that. every night when I go, I'm grateful before I go to sleep to say I've come very far and God's been kind. I think, back in those days, Harry, the only way that people thought they could have financial stability is by getting good jobs on the back of good education. And, the government had incentives and scholarships, and I'm really blessed to have got them. I think I worked really hard to make sure I made the grades that were, required to get those scholarships. And I went on to do my bachelor's in commerce. I was in a rush to be financially independent and get a job, so I was among the a few young accountants in the country at the time. I qualified as a cost accountant when I was 21. Uh, and still, that didn't mean much. I knew that that wouldn't take me too far. It gave me a job, but not a career. So I dabbled a little bit in technology, figured that that was not my calling, and went on to do my master's in finance. Again, I always tell people that play the best game with the cards life has dealt you. I wasn't able to go to any Ivy League college, even not even the best institutes in India. I mean, I just went to the one in Mumbai because that's all we could afford at that time. But I'm proud to say again that I really worked hard. I stood first in the University of Mumbai. I feel quite proud of that even now. I
Yes.
can't believe it myself. But what it meant was that I got a good break in consulting. So before the two roles that you mentioned, I worked in two consulting organizations. Uh, I think I was put at the deep end of the pool because I was very young, and most of our clients were like, "Oh, you don't have experience. How are you going to help us?" And it was like every project was a test of my capability.
Yeah.
Somehow the background did come in to help. I had people who I leaned on to take me through that journey. And after 8 years in consulting, I kind of worked across, 12, 13 different industries. I got this break with Morgan Stanley, and I started working there. Now, that was the first time I worked for financial services and for a global organization, because until then I'd worked with large corporates in India, but not really a global organization. And I think what it was deep learning because it's a very reputed organization, had great culture, and it allowed me to learn so much more. So I've always, loved my time there. What it also did for me, I think, Harry, somewhere along the line, I realized that, okay, now I didn't have to keep worrying about whether my family would do well. God being kind, as I said. I got married, had a husband who was, he still remains the, wind under my wings. And I went on to start some work in philanthropy. And this is about 15 years back. And it started with simple volunteering. And we used to have these different opportunities to work with different organizations. And I was kind of discovering what I liked. So I started with the environment, started with some kind of, working with organizations that looked after the environment and afforestation. We'd go and plant saplings, do, greenery drives and the likes, look after the office, all of that stuff. And then, the philosophy of the firm, Morgan Stanley, is centered around children. And I think that just was such a gratifying role to play because we did a lot of work with children over the 10 years that I was there in the philanthropy committee. We worked with many hospitals, and I really flourished because I got the opportunity to kind of, pitch those ideas to the internal committee. And as I said, it was something that I felt prouder of than my professional, achievements. It's something that I felt grateful to be in a position to do that. And my head still lies in that space, Harry. I want to kind of do, philanthropy for good. And here came the opportunity from TIA, which felt at the cusp of the two. And what I mean by that is TIA, which is Teachers Insurance Annuity Association of US, is a 100-year-old organization that serves teachers on their retirement funds and their insurance. And this was set up because our founder felt that teachers were not taken care of, and they are the foundation of society. And it gradually expanded into serving other people like doctors, etc., nurses, and the like. So the mission is to serve those who serve society. And I felt, oh, this is great because it still allows me to be in financial services. That's my professional strength. But at the mission, it's something
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
aligns with what I want to do in life, and I felt like I got that sense of purpose. So that's how I've landed where I've landed. A very quick snapshot of my life.
Wow. I know I was I made 3 points here that I wanted to come and summarize, and we might do it backwards and so on. And TIA, when you said founder, is Dale Carnegie, right? So
Yes,
is that
that's
fact?
right.
Yeah. So for many people will know, you know everything that amazing soul has done in terms of education and young people. And what sits so well is the Harry Singer Foundation is about serving young people and vulnerable women, and this is where I know that our energies aligned because coming together. Mum always said, "Help the helpers." So when we're helping each other and so on, we can do so much more. But I got this thing here when you put Chief Responsibility Officer, and it's like, that CRO in organizations actually, the definition of leadership that we put across is leadership is when you make that commitment to take responsibility for the well-being of a community, and whether that community is your family, whether it's your organization, whether it's a cause. And you're the CRO is not a role for you; it's your lifestyle. I know that much, right? Because you've got so many places where you've taken, you don't just take it on. You really, really like what we talk about. You become passionate about it, and then you become a you create you've been able to take the word ally and take responsibility and put them together. As an ally, it's not just like, oh, I'm here, but you actively are there. So let's get into that. Let's talk about some of that work there, where you're an ally when it comes to diversity and inclusion, and even about equally. Let's talk about those things. I want people to get a flavour of who you are and what you do in that area.
Yeah, so I think, I was asked by the editor when we were writing equally as to, why I'm an ally. And I've never quite given it a thought, Harry. I just felt it was the right thing to do, that I wanted to pay it forward. I felt I was in a position where I could help people. And I'm like, look, that's what everybody should be doing. And I'm just doing my role. But I said, fundamentally, there must be some reason. And he kept nudging. We had like, I don't know, 2 hour conversations on this. And he's like, no, you're not getting to the point. I think you need to reflect. And I did, Harry. You know what? One of the things growing up, and even in my MBA course, was, and I can say it more comfortably today, is I was very shy of my background. I didn't want anybody to know that I lived in a very small home, or that I was too poor. I was wearing hand me downs to college. And I would just not, not talk anything about my life. I go,
Yeah.
it's about projects, it's about things, it's about superficial, and if anybody spoke about family or stuff, I would just kind of change the topic and move over. And I was hiding. I was an imposter, right? I don't think anybody would have judged me any differently if they knew I was poor. I had wonderful friends.
Yeah.
But the thing is, I realized what it means to live a life like that by hiding your sexuality if you're from the LGBT community. And it's very prevalent in India. It's changing, and hopefully it changes at a fast pace. And I said, it's so terrifying to live your entire life like that, and not only to your friends, but even to your family. And what kind of dark place does an individual have to live and pull to? That's life is beautiful. It shouldn't have to be this way. And I think somewhere the need to kind of say, let's be allies, let's create an environment where people understand that we respect their choices, right? Respect their orientations, and not even choices, their orientations, and make sure that we are inclusive. I mean, that's how the whole equally story started for me. I would say about 6 7 years back. For me, I was lucky to have a few mentees who were from the community, so I learned more about their challenges, and I started to get people around the industry together. I got like 25 30 companies coming together and saying, hey, what needs to change? What can we do? There were some constraints from a regulatory perspective. But yeah, okay, but we can still do something, right? What is that? Still do something. And it just kept building. And I think when you take on something, Harry, I know sometimes we overwhelm ourselves. You just start with small steps. You'll be amazed how it snowballs, and it can become a huge thing to feel proud of. And I really feel very privileged that I've been trusted by many folks in the community, that I got the time to serve them and mentor many of them. So on the equally part, that's what it is, and that's why they asked if I would share my thoughts, and again, I was happy to do that.
Yeah.
I think the other one is on women. Sorry, Harry.
No,
Sorry,
no,
carry
carry
on.
on, carry on. I've always got what I want to say there, but you carry on.
No, I think on the women, Harry, growing up, again, there were very few women in the workforce in the kind of roles that we were doing. I mean, I've actually been on assignments where they didn't even have a ladies' washroom, you know. it was hard. And so you never quite, I mean, you would just emulate the men, but that didn't seem right. And
Mm.
I felt that if at the right time I had somebody, a mentor, a coach, I would have probably flourished far more than I have today. Now, I did have good mentors and coaches, I would say, in the last, 5, 6, 7 years. But by which time I'd already done 12 years in the industry. So it felt like, you know what, it's good. And I found it again. I took baby steps. I signed up with a foundation who asked me if I'd mentor a few women. I realized I loved it. I was doing informal mentoring anyway in our
Yeah.
workplaces.
Yeah.
People will come and ask you something, and it doesn't have to be formal. People ask you a question, you share something. Be authentic about your challenges, and you'll figure that it hits off really well. Give people actionable ideas, and I really love doing it. So I think that's kind of just then something I realized about myself, that I could do it.
Yeah.
And so that's the part with women. And the others are really areas that I want to work on. I don't think I've done enough. So people with disability. The only thing I've done, Harry, is run 10 kilometers with a blind,
10 kilometers still quite a
partner.
distance.
Yeah, for a cause. And it was a fantastic experience. Again, I think empathy comes from really being close and understanding what the other person goes through.
Yeah, brilliant. And there's the amazing synchronicity because when you said what did you want to, I want you to say, give us it from that perspective of being a woman, and you already took it there, and it's you triggered something else in my mind when we met, when I came and delivered some programs for Morgan Stanley, and I we met the philanthropy team, and everybody went round and said who they were and why they did it and what made their heart sing, and then it got to you, and you were like, you still had that. Oh, I don't want people to know like about, and it was just so authentic and even more inspiring for others to know where you had come from and what you were doing, and you still had the humility with it. That's really really important. I want to make sure that people get that. That while we talk about empowering women and serving vulnerable women, I'm never a fan of these labels. I think empowering women is like like you're giving power to women, or is it you're letting them step into their power? And sometimes what I call elite performers like yourself who have made it to the top of their game, whether it's in roles in corporations or the key is to get that fulfillment, and you're like a great model for that. That when you've gone and taken, people were like, "Why would you go and leave this role? Why would you go do that?" And then you talked about TIA because TIA gives you both the achievement and the fulfillment, and you can do it. That gets you to do that. So I want to honor you for that. So, is there any other roles or areas like outside of all of those things that you'd like to share? Because people, when they watch these episodes, they're like, give us some tools, give them some strategies. We'll get onto that, right? But I want people to understand that, because when we met, remember, it's like we did something and then we went and did service together. We did. I mean, even like I've still got here like the presentation from the Sea Cadets and so on. Like it's like literally, can you still see this thing here? I make sure it's in one of my pride places, right?
Yes,
It's
yes.
we had so much fun serving, and then literally we had a youth leadership summit, and we brought you onto that stage, and the whole thing just turned into women's empowerment, and the number of young girls there on that youth leadership looking at you going, wow, if she can do that, I can do that. And I remember so many young girls were amazed and said, you know what, that they started going, she's my role model, she's my role model. And you're still humble with it. So now I just want to say, is there anything else that you want to share about Surekha and the things that you're working with? And then we'll move into some tool or strategy that you can share that people go, help me, right? Go with it.
Yeah. So listen, this is a short chat show. I like to keep it positive, Harry. There were very difficult times, all through those years. And I think somehow when people see the end result, it looks great, and it should be. But I think all men or women will have adversities kind of challenging them throughout the period. I think that's the reason I talk about playing the best, game with the cards that you have. Sometimes the role is not right. Sometimes the job is not right. Sometimes you don't have the family support. I think one thing that I would appeal for people, and both again, men and women, is you can't pour from an empty cup. You have to learn to take care of yourself first, and only then can you take care of others. So just so you know, fun fact, I'm someone who works out every day for the last 10, 12 years, other than the minor hiccups when I enjoy myself, which is quite often,
Yeah,
considering
yeah,
I kind of go overboard. But I think the one thing I realized, Harry, is you need a strong mind and body for yourself. And if you want to serve others, then you want to be strong enough to take on, their anxieties, their pain. Because when you get very involved, you start to share that pain, and you can't do it unless you're strong. So I do want to say it's important to take care of oneself as the first priority to be able to help those around you.
brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. And so, if you had one other piece of wisdom or tool or something that you've helped with, when you're mentoring women that come through, whether they're in corporate and so on, is there anything that stands out for you that you could share with someone who's watching this, listening to this, whether they are a woman in need for support and guidance, or even if they are people who mentor and support women? So, uh, whatever comes to mind, please share.
Yeah, so I think, Harry, in the last 40, 50 years, people have been in the workforce more than they have been for centuries, right? Now, centuries of conditioning was that women were meant for nurture and men were meant for responsibility. Now, somewhere along the line, the blurring has happened. People are doing, roles of all kinds. But at the heart of it, I think what happens is that, you're almost genetically disposed to nurture. And in that, what I said earlier is put up your hand if you need help. I can tell you I was really bad about taking help, Harry. I wanted to do everything myself. I was just
Yeah,
asking a little bit of help. I'm not saying favor, help,
yeah,
right? Would go against the grain of, oh, I didn't do it all myself. But life's not like that. I think it's
yeah,
important to have people around you. And when you ask for help, be there for them too. It's not one way street, but you'll figure that it's a beautiful, connection that you can make with your friends, with family, with colleagues. You'll be amazed at, strangers being kind. I think it's for us to ask. There's nothing wrong about asking for help sometimes. Ask
mm,
your boss. I mean, I remember yesterday I had some deliverable. I was not feeling well. I mean, Surekha 10 years back would have not said anything. She would have killed herself, taken painkillers, finish it off. And
yeah,
I went and told him, I said, look, I could do this, but can you tell me if it's really important right now? Because I'm kind of really suffering. I've got like this huge pain. So, and he said, no, 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 of course not. You can do it by Wednesday. And I can tell you, I was so happy that I asked for that help. There's nothing
mm,
wrong. We're all there for each other. So I think that we do less of. I think, women do less of. You always feel responsible for everybody around you,
mm,
but you don't take that help. And I think that's important. And I think the other one is really to delegate. You can delegate some things, even your house, chores, everything. You can make it fun. You can take your family along, and don't take it all on yourself, because you don't get respected that way. Sometimes you need to demand.
wow. Just hearing those two words come from you, for anybody that's listening and watching, that fine balance of nurturing, responsibility, and then delegating those things, because and it's not uncommon, and I'm not surprised that many of the guests we have on here, if there is one of the themes that come through as much as most, it's that ability to ask for help, and hearing it from you, hopefully that message gets across from people, do it. As scary as it is, you may be surprised. It's what's the worst thing can happen if you ask for help? They might say no, right? But it's that constant reminder that vulnerability is our strength if you have the right intention. So, yeah, thank you so much for that, Sarika. So what's going to be next? Because I know one thing's for sure is when we run we're going to be having a virtual women's summit, so women's empowerment summit, and definitely you've got that invitation, and we're going to be delighted to have
Thank
you
you so
there
much.
sharing. And because to me that summit is simply about bringing on 8 women over 2 days who come purely from service and sharing their best, and with that intention of women helping women. And so we're delighted to have that. But what's next for you? What else is in the pipeline? And then how can people follow your journey, whether it's your LinkedIn's and so on? Go ahead, please share, because I'm sure a lot of people just from this will probably want to reach out to you and go, hey, would you come on my podcast? Would you come on this? So you got to get used to that journey. So I know you're well on that journey now as a speaker, and we talk about speaking as serving. So you've always had service as your lifestyle. So what's next, and how can people follow you?
Yeah, so I think next, I kind of take 2 3 year chunks of timelines to see how I develop myself as I move along. I think at the core will always remain the pay forward, because I think nothing gives me as much happiness and peace as seeing something that I say to someone or something that I do for someone in a very little way change their lives. So I think that's not going to change. I know, it will change in flavors. I'll keep taking on different things, because I've found that I do need a refresh. So sometimes it's 1 year of disability and looking at doing everything there. Then and some are just constant, which are women, which are about allies, being the ally for the LGBT community. But I think I really really enjoy mentoring women, and I've taken to that, and I almost, and I hope I don't get a flood here, but I don't refuse any mentees.
Yeah,
So there
yeah.
are strangers who reached out on LinkedIn, and I make the time as long as both parties are authentic. I've been mentoring women, whoever reaches out to me on LinkedIn, so that's the best place to follow me. I also have a Twitter handle, which is Surekha Shenoy, just one word. I don't tweet too much. I think I'm more active on LinkedIn, but happy for anybody to reach out, and if I can make any difference in their lives, I would feel very blessed.
There you go. What a way to end that. Making a difference, making the world a better place, even if you're making that world a better place for that one person. I know that's what you are in your core. So, and we'll put all those links that Surekha just shared on the YouTube channel, so you can reach out to her. And Surekha, I know people will. So once again, thank you so much for taking the time. Keep doing what you're doing. Is there any final? I'm going to give you the final words before I wrap up, as I always do. So your final words, Surekha, to everybody. But this won't be the last time you guys will hear from Surekha. Trust me. So, Surekha, what's your final word just for this episode?
I think everybody can pay it forward, irrespective of where you are. And I think the younger generation is far more committed to improving the society than perhaps I was when I was younger. So I feel very honored and privileged to see young children who want to make a difference. And I think, therefore, whatever you can do to make the world a better place in your capacity, because it's not necessarily about money, it's about time, it's about love. Do that, and it's a very fulfilling kind of. Nothing fulfills you as much as seeing someone happy. So I think everybody can, and everybody should.
Wow. When we say wow, those are words of wisdom. Wow, from one of the most empowering women that I know. So thank you so much, Surekha. And what we're going to do is wrap up like we always do. If you got value there from Surekha, put a comment on the YouTube channel, follow Surekha, you'll see the links there. And if you haven't already done so, subscribe to the Harry Singha Foundation's YouTube channel, where not only will you get all the episodes of Empowering Women, you also get all the episodes for Empowering Youth. And we've got all your details, like all the details are there below for the Harry Singha Foundation. Just use that on all of the tags, whether it's Instagram or our website. So I look forward to connecting with you guys on another episode of Empowering Women very soon.